Hey everyone, we're here. This is going to be a really quick video. I'm super pressed for time. We are checking how to access information to write a rule for our game. So currently our game is pretty simple and it doesn't really do much and it's not much fun. You can play a card, the other people can play a card. They have this little wait time so that it's kind of like they're thinking, and it'll come back around to us and eventually we'll get to play our second card, and this just continues and you can play all your cards and nothing really happens. And so yeah, it's not much of a game. But if we were to add some rules and then start keeping track of score, let's say, or something like that, the game could be a lot more fun. To add a rule, it's actually really easy. What we need to do is essentially define a rule and then look for the information that we need to follow through. One thing I would recommend is start with a text object just so you can keep track of what's going on. If you do throw in a text object, we call this, I don't know, rule debugger, you can call it score, I don't know, all sorts of things. So start with this text object, go into your script, make sure you have UI selected, and then just create a public text variable for rule debugger, sure, we'll go with that. And save it and drag the text object into your script. So the reason why we're going to do that is it's just going to make things nice and easy to work with. So it's right over here. What we're going to do is as we try and implement a rule, we'll follow that text and see what happens. So first things first, let's go to that text object and clear it out. Just make sure it doesn't say anything, and we'll update it if we need to. So let's go to our script. Now we want to write a rule. Let's say we're playing the game Go Fish. You'd have to check if you have a pair, and then if you have a pair, you get a point. And if you have a pair, you'd play both of those cards. Or if you ask the other player if they had a card and they had it, they would have to give it to you. Something like that. Those would be rules. In each case, you need to be able to check your hand or the other player's hand for certain card information. Luckily, our game is set up so that we can do that. You have this array of players. That means it contains all the information for every player. And if we go down to our player class, the player has an array of cards called the hand. So you can check every card in a unique player's hand. So we could use that to implement a simple rule. So what we're going to do is we're going to implement a rule where whoever played the highest card gets a point. And that point will be tracked in the text. Now for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm only going to track the points for our player. So we're going to do public int score. And we'll keep track of the score by increasing every time we play the highest card. All right, so now we have to figure out where do we check to see if we played the highest card. It would make sense that we should check after the fourth player plays their card, because then everybody's had a chance to play a card and we can evaluate and see who played the highest. For us to do that, we have to know which cards are on the field, which cards are on the board. So let's do some debugging. I'm going to play a card and watch what changes in the game. My middle pile empty is growing in size by one at a time, as well as my game board is growing in size one at a time. So on my game board, what I want to check is elements 0, 1, 2, and 3. Let's play another card and see what changes. I want to know if this game board is growing from the bottom or growing from the top. So instantly, you should see that this game board is actually growing from which side? Well, all of these cards have been played into some space on the game board. We used to have, there we go, our 1, our 2, and our 3. Let's try that one more time. I lost track. I'm looking at my game board, play a card. So I've got 9. Oh, I know what I did. I was looking at the element. I wasn't looking at the card. So we got a 9, an 11, a 12, and a 5. And then I'll play another card, And it's pretty easy to see that these cards are not changing, but they're staying at the bottom. So our game board is growing from the top. So the 4 first cards in the game board, those are going to be the most recently played cards. Perfect. That makes things nice and easy for us. We want to look at game board's cards 0, 1, 2, and 3. Now this is going to happen in the end turn, and it's going to happen kind of like right here whenever we're about to set it back to 0. So what we want to do is create some kind of function, public, void, check for highest card. And we're going to look for who has the highest card. So that needs to happen right before it's our turn again. And this is the location where the 4th player has played their card. Or if you don't have 4 players, it would be the location where the last player has played their card. It's right before we set our player index back to 0, which is the first player. So all we need to do is we need to look at the game board. So we're going to do a for loop, int I equals 0 to I is less than gameboard.length I++. This will allow us to check every card in the game board one time. We need to keep track of the highest card. Now the highest card is an integer. We want to look for an integer. So we store a temporary variable of the integer type. Int current highest. You could give it any name you want, just don't reuse another one. Equals 0. We have to start at 0 because if it's anything higher than that, we want to keep track of that. So every time we look at a card, if that card's number is higher than our current highest card, we'll just increase it to equal that card's number. So we'll say game board, remember this is an array, so we'll feed in the I integer dot value. We're looking at the value of the card in the I position on the game board. Now the good thing about this is the first 4 cards are the ones we're interested in. So if it's round 1, I guess we could use gameboard.length, but if it was round 2, would we really want to go through the whole game board? I don't think that would make sense. So let's change this to be just the top 4 cards. Now if you had a different player count, you wouldn't want to put a 4 here. You'd want to put whatever the number was for how many players you have. So it might also make sense to call this players.length. So what we're checking again is the value higher than current highest? So we need to create a condition. Now if this value is greater than current highest, then we need to reset current highest. Current highest equals gameboard I dot value. Now as it currently stands, this should tell us what the highest card played was. So before we even do anything else, let's just debug.log and check if it's working, current highest. So we need to see if the game is able to detect the highest card at the correct time. So we'll go back into Unity, hit play, play a card, and watch what happens in the console. So I played a card, they played a card, this person will play a card, and then that person will play a card, and we'll see who played the highest card. Highest was an 11. 11 is a queen. You'll notice if I look at the card info, it's an 11. Looks like our game is working, and it did that at the perfect time. It did that after that player played a card. So I think our script is working just fine. Now we want to make something happen. Always add user interface whenever you do something that's crucial to your game. So we don't want to debug this in the console because the user won't be able to see that. What would make more sense is if we changed the text. Now we only want to add a point, like I said, if our player has the highest card. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this rule debugger text, and we're going to increase its score if our player has a card. So this will be the score. Where are we? We're right here. Check for highest card. So we're going to say rule debugger.text equals score. Simple as that. You may have to put .toString. It likes that. And before we actually update the text, we want to check if we should score a point or not. So we would say if, and what we have to do is we have to look for if our card was the highest card before we add a point. And there are many ways you could go about this. I'm going to use a very simple method. I'm just going to check. I'm going to check our card, and then I'm going to check the highest card value. Simple as that. Now our card, if we look at the game board, it's going to be element number 3 in the game board array. So if I look at the game board, after all the cards have been played, element number 3, that is our card, that's the Jack. So you'll notice element number 3 is right over here, that's the Jack. My numbering is kind of weird, it's off by 1, but element number 3 is the Jack. So we're going to have to check for element number 3. If game board 3.value equals current highest, score plus plus. So we'll add a point. All right, so what will this do? Every time we play around, if we have the highest card, we should score. If we don't, then it's just going to update the text. So we're going to play the king because we want to play the highest card possible. King is a 12, I believe, so it should be a pretty high card. Now, since the king was the highest card on the board, we got a point. Now let's play a low card and make sure that we don't get a point when we're not supposed to. So this time I'm playing a 4. Great, we didn't get any more points. So that's kind of how you should approach writing rules. I'm running out of time, and I will definitely be continuing this with other options for your rules, but it's time to upload. So hope this helped, and good luck. Remember, the basic thing that we did here is you have to decide what you want to check for, when you want to do that. So we did that whenever everybody had played a card, which, by the way, your location for when everyone has played a card is right here. And then you also want to, so you check what do you want to check for, when do you want to do it, and then how do you want to display the results. So we displayed the results as a text. All right, see you guys next time.